Podcasters Roundtable, round 44. What's new in podcast gear, software, and apps? So another fun round. We're going to talk about some of the things we've tried, want to try, have used over the last, maybe the last year, as recent as possible to improve our podcast productions, right? And I should tell you to get on over to podcastersroundtable.com/guest so that I know you're out there and I can get you onto a future roundtable. That's how it's done. It's one of the ways it's done. It's the best way that it's done. So get over there and sign up. Other announcements, New Media Expo, co-located with NAB this year, is coming up in April 2015. And the Podcasters Roundtable, or just Podcasters Roundtable, I got to get the Podcasters Roundtable. I got to get that domain. I don't think I have that, but I better check on that. Anyways, Podcasters Roundtable will be there. Myself, Dave, Daniel, and of course some special guests will be there live. Ironically, we won't be doing this live on air, but we will be there live in person. So if you're there, make sure you let one of us know. We'll do a live session on the floor, just like we did last year. We'll try to gather the biggest crowd. I think we had the biggest crowd last year. It was a lot of fun, and high fives. We want to meet in person. So check that out. Let us know if you're going to be there, because that is in the works. Also, related to this episode, the last time we did one similar to this was Podcasters Roundtable Round 11. It was called Podcast Purchase Decisions. And what we did on that one is we took a mock budget, basically to spend on gear, software, whatever, as if we were starting a podcast today. What would we buy on, I think it was $500, a fake $500. And, that might sound like a lot, but we need a little bit more of a budget so we could have fun on the round, and it was a bunch of fun. So it's going to be similar to that, but this is more kind of stuff we are actually using, and maybe some stuff we want to use that we're going to get into on this round. But first of all, I want to give a disclaimer, I guess. A disclaimer to those who will point us to discussions like these and say, it's not about the tech. You're right, it's not all about the tech. It's not all about the tech. But in my opinion, you only need what I'm holding right now, an ATR 2100, in my opinion, to have a high-quality show. That puts you at about a $50 budget, okay, to get started. And to me, that's a very small investment for this huge undertaking that you're going to embark on, which is a podcast, and probably the best hobby that you'll ever have, right? So less than the price of a video game. So this is not a round about stuff you have to make a podcast, okay? But it's a round for, the enthusiast out there of you who love gear, who are gear junkies, anyone who's interested in basically upgrades to their setup or tools that can make workflow easier, sometimes make it better, and quite honestly, sometimes it can just make it more fun. So we're going to have a bunch of fun, and we'll even have some stuff that we're using that is actually free. So don't tune out if your budget is zero. We do have options there. All right, so let's meet the roundtable. Dave not with us today. He's on the road. I think he's frantically trying to stream it, which, Dave, stop doing that. Don't crash. If you're listening, just give up. There is an archive. We will see you on the next round. He might pop in like the last 5 minutes. Dave's head, one gear suggestion. See you later. All right, starting off, of course, with the other co-host here on the roundtable, Daniel J. Lewis. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'm excited about this topic because I got some new toys recently with Christmas, and also I'm looking forward to some new toys and trying some new things in podcasting.
Yeah, I was looking for a topic. I think this is Daniel's idea of sorts, and we molded that, and we ended up with this round today. So very cool. And the next roundtabler is a new roundtabler. Of course, we got to have one of those. Jason, welcome to the roundtable.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. I've got my new gear with me. I'm ready to chit-chat about it.
Yeah, I got that nice big, what is that, an RE20 sitting there in the...
RE27.
RE27, all right. Yes. So I need to study up on my microphones. Nice. So
it's the shiny one.
It's the shiny one. Gotcha. There's a couple different versions. Dave's got the 320, right? And the 20 is just the, the matte?
The 20 is the standard radio matte version.
And what's the difference? The 27, so here I am already sort of derailing things, but because I don't think that's new, but I'm curious since it's right there in the shot. We know about the PR40, we know about the ATR 2100, but the 27, what's the difference?
Well, it's actually the RE27/ND because it uses neodymium magnets. So it's got like a higher frequency to it. It's a little tinnier than the RE20s, but it still looks cool. And you can beat somebody to death with it in a street fight if you need to.
That's what matters with every microphone.
Yep.
Double duty. Yeah, so, you're on a budget. The ATR, you might not survive in a fight. The PR40, good little for me, some brass knuckles. The RE27, just go at it. It's a sword. blunt sword. All right, so let's start it off. I have a list of things that I've tried out or have gotten into the studio here, but I don't want to step on anyone else's list. So I'll, as Jason being our new roundtabler, our guest, so to speak, I'll let him start off with something new that he has gotten in for his podcast productions.
Okay, well, I mean, I started about almost 2 years ago, and we were pure USB. Everything was USB. We started with some Blue Yetis and Apogee mics, and then moved our way up to the Rode Podcasters, and couldn't really get what we were looking for.
So wait, let me ask why. I mean, because that's important, right? Because people starting out, that's a lot easier USB to deal with. Why did you start off USB? Just because of ease or budget or what?
Both. It was supremely easy to use. They were fairly cheap, inexpensive. The Apogee was pretty pricey. I mean, that was around $200 for when we started. We didn't know if it was going to keep going, but it sounded great, and I really wanted to kind of start off with something that sounded pretty decent. But having two mixed mics was a problem. So then we were doing the show in person, and we could kind of make it sound good, like we were using the same mics. But when my show split across country, and we had to do everything over Skype, so it didn't really kind of jive over Skype. You could tell the differences. So me and my co-host went and bought Rode Podcasters and got that setup going. But even Skype at that point was a little troublesome, so then moved into trying to get a new setup. I've always been afraid of the XLR mics and the mixing board because there's so many knobs.
It's intimidating, right? Like this is,
yeah.
When people start podcasting, I often say like a couple of the hardest things to understand used to be FeedBurner, because FeedBurner always stopped people. They're like, I don't quite get it. Tell me again, what does it do and how do I use it? And mixing boards were the next one, because there is so much potential that you can do with it and all the knobs, right? So yeah, mixing boards can definitely be sort of trip you up.
Yeah, the potential for disaster went through the roof once I got it. But my friend Jordan Harbinger, who was on the show before, gave me a mixing board. And he's like, if I give this to you, will you use it? And I'm like, well, sure. So now I have a mixing board, so I had to get XLR mics. So I got my RE27. I got a couple AT2005s, and now I'm playing around with the mixing board and trying to get that rocking and rolling.
Now, it's funny you got the AT2005s, because we usually associate that with USB, but if you know, these are dual output microphones, right? They do USB or XLR. I'm actually using both of them right now, which is actually one of the more amazing things about the microphone, is that you can actually send out the USB and the XLR at the same exact time. So if you're watching this on Google Plus on the live Hangout, you're hearing the USB, but if you're listening to this in the podcast only version, you're getting the XLR. So part of my complex setup, but it is so cool that you can do both.
Yeah, that's very cool. I didn't know that. I have to play with mine now.
Yeah, it's actually a way to you can fudge a mix minus with a audio recorder, because you can send Skype the USB and you can plug your audio recorder via your mic in via XLR if your audio recorder has that. And so, yeah, anyways, I have a video about it at the Podcaster Studio, or check out the YouTube channel, and it shows you how I do that setup. And I use that here for the Roundtable, and I get a better quality product out of the audio-only podcast than what you get on the live stream. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. So with the AT2005s, you're plugging those in via XLR to, which mixer was it? I
got a pre-Sonos, Hangout.
Oh, so it's one word we already know. It's like premium.
Yeah, I got a pre-Sonos Studio Live 16.0.2.
And that was the mixer he gave you?
Yep.
Yeah, nice. I'm going to have to become better friends with Jordan.
He's a good buddy. Definitely.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. We had him on. In fact, I think I asked you to be on the Roundtable. You couldn't make it. You sent Jordan. It was a good substitute.
Yeah. So I got the 2005s to use with a Zoom H4n, because I wanted to do external podcasts and just be able to take that instead of carrying a laptop and all the gear. And it just works great now that I have the mixing board. So it's all kind of come together, and I've basically sold all my USB mics except for one Rode podcaster in case I have to go on the road and do a guest spot somewhere.
Well,
Yeah.
see, you could take the AT2005 for that because it is USB as well.
I know, but I think the Rode sounds better.
Haha.
Yeah, that is true. It does sound a little bit better.
So, it's interesting. You said H4n and the road, going on the road with the A2005s. I'm assuming you leave the mixer, take the H4n and the ATRs, and try to do mobile that way. But typically, the H4n does not sound good because you got to push the pre's pretty hard to get a microphone like that to get the level that you want. Have you used that setup?
Not yet. I got it,
Okay.
and I haven't actually tried it yet.
So a new one. So one of the guys I wanted to get on here, who we didn't get on today, has a H5. So the H5 is the new version. It's the upgrade to the H4n, and it came out with the H6. Actually, a little after the H6. These have significantly improved preamps, where I highly recommend them. If you're looking at H4ns, I would just go to the H5 because it is now available. Same size, it's maybe a little more compact, a little thinner, and you can remove the mic capsule from the top. But the key is that those preamps are a little nicer, and they can push a gain-hungry microphone like these ATRs cleaner. So if you're finding you have trouble with that, maybe an option you want to look into.
Okay, yeah, we just used the H6s for some video work for my day job, and that thing was nice.
H6 is great.
It's really nice.
Yeah, that's the one I would get. Although, you know what? Tascam is giving a really good retort to those. All the new stuff that Tascam's coming out with. In fact, the preamps probably to an audiophile just a little cleaner. So it's a toss-up. What's nice is that I can tell you to go Tascam or Zoom, the latest models, and be confident that you are going to get what you need. So I'm really enjoying all the stuff that's coming out. We're seeing so many new cool pieces of gear come out for podcasters, and I think because each of these companies is sort of upping their game, the next guy's got to come out with a competitively priced, well-made device, and that's obviously doing a lot for us. Daniel, do you, in that realm, well, you used the H4n. Are you still using that?
Yeah, I still use it for my in-studio recording. My microphones go into my mixer, which goes into the H4n, and the mixer's output is so loud compared to the H4n's input that I turn the preamp all the way down to 1 on a scale of 1 to 100, and that's recording at the right level. I even have to drop my mixer a little bit down. But yeah, I still use it for that, as well as when I'm doing video recordings where I'm wearing a lavalier microphone. I plug the lavalier into the back of the H4n and stick that in my pocket. It's big and bulky for that, but it's my only recorder I have besides my iPhone.
So in the chat, when Jason mentioned his mixer, Nick, friend of the show, Superling, you've seen on here plenty of times. Too close to a t-shirt. He said that that's a nice mixer, and he was wanting the 16.02. And then Daniel, you said you were considering the UFX, the Behringer UFX Xenix 1204, which I actually have sitting right over here. In fact, if maybe I can do this. There she is over there. You can see it. It's a beautiful mixer. I'm testing it out, so don't immediately go out and say, "Ooh, Ray's got that. Go buy that." Don't do that. But I will say I'm enjoying it. Now, this is a new piece of gear that I have had here for a couple weeks. I am just testing it out, so I have to send it back. This mixer is exciting to me for a couple reasons. And the first one being, it does something really unique. Maybe the $1,000 mixers do this. I have not seen this before. But you can plug in an external hard drive to the back of this thing and record multi-channel. So multi-channel is not something you get on a lot of mixers, and you certainly don't get the ability to just plug a hard drive in the back. So that can free you from the computer. It does a lot of cool things. What it can't do is it can't do to the hard drive and multi-track to or go in via USB or FireWire at the same time. But it is USB 2.0 and FireWire, so a lot of ways to get in, and those are both multi-channel. I've tested all that out. I've got a bunch of stuff. It's coming at the Podcaster Studio, but on my SoundCloud page, I'm doing a lot of testing, which you can check out. But
Ray, a question about that. That mixer is on, or has been on my list, and we've been going back and forth about this, but one of the things that you were talking about is that it seems its multi-channel recording is pre-fader, or at least what it's sending to the computer. So if you're adjusting the faders, the volume knobs on the mixer, muting channels, that's not affecting what goes out to the computer. Does that affect what goes out to an external hard drive?
That's a good question. I would suspect that, yeah, that's a good question. That's one thing I need to test. I would suspect yes, because it is also via the USB, but add it to the list to test, which I was sitting here thinking, what's left to test? So I will have to try that. That's kind of a difficult test because you don't monitor it in real time, but I'll twist the fader or move the faders and see what happens. Now, they are pre-fader, and when I discovered that, so what you're saying basically is if I'm doing multi-track in my computer and I take the faders and I turn them down, I can't affect the level that way. Now, you can use the gain knob, which is not as convenient, and also the gain knob does not turn the microphone off completely. It goes down to 10 dB. So you can't really turn the channel off all the way, but you can have fader control, so post fader via the aux sends. So the aux sends actually do, so that gives you 2 channels mono audio that you could control post fader. And at first I thought, man, this really sucks. Why would this happen? This seems like a big problem. Then I found out the entire, the Onyx line, which is Mackie, is also the same way. So it's not unique to this. It seems to be kind of common on these multi-channel mixers. And then I thought, is this really an issue? Why does it matter? Because you set your levels and you go. You shouldn't really need to turn off one channel of audio completely or anything like that. You can still adjust the volumes individually with the gain knob. But, you know, if you're doing multi-channel, you pretty much get your levels and go. So there could be unique situations.
I'll give you 2 examples of situations. One, I just muted myself while I coughed.
Sure, but remember we're talking about multi-channel. So really kind of the point of multi-channel is that you're recording separate channels and you can handle that in post-production.
But
so
see, then you have to edit it in post-production. You can't just mute yourself and
why are you doing multi-channel? Why are you doing multi-channel if you're not going to do post? Because then you might as well just mix it, right?
Yeah, true. The other situation would be if you want to do any kind of fade-ins and fade-outs, like for your background music, if you want on-demand control of that, and that's not coming in through a channel that has a gain knob on your mixer, it's coming in through one of the stereo channels, then you wouldn't have your adjustment to be able to fade in and fade out the music on demand.
Right. Well, those channels still do have a gain knob on it, but they won't be affected by the fader. But again, if this is critical, you do still have 2 channels, the aux, that you can control completely like that. Yeah, you can't mute it, but you know, if you have a hacking cough, you do have the ability to go in and take that out in a multi-track production. So anyways, would it be better? Yes, because my Alesis, my Firewire mixer that's now discontinued, it was like $200 maybe. It has post fader. So, you know, a little disappointing, but again, not a deal breaker. So this mixer to me was exciting because it's $399. You get the multi-channel. You get some unique thing. If you want to or need to do multi-channel for your podcast, it's hard to get into that in a mixer below $600. I think the Mackie Onyx is $500 or $600. So this is the first mixer since this Alesis series to come out that is below that price range. So it has a lot of cool things. And of course, the most important of all of them, because if this part had sucked, there's no reason to test anything out. Past that, how are the preamps? The preamps, they're killer. Now, there is one little weird thing. I don't want to make this a total review on this mixer, but that's coming up. But at the top of the gain range, it's really sensitive. Like I feel like if I sneezed, it would move. So when you're dialing it in, you have to be really, really careful. But it has enough gain to push the high LPR 40, the ATR 2100. To me, those are both gain-hungry mics. Unless you're using like the Shure SM7B, I don't know. I don't have that mic, and that I think is typically known as like one of the most gain-hungry microphones, at least that you'll hear from podcasters. Those are some of the more typical microphones. But let's move on. I wanted that mixer. That is definitely on my list as one of the newest pieces of gear. And again, I was most excited because it's multi-channel at a price that, you know, is at least easier to get into than what is currently out there. So I would like to see Alesis. I've told them several times. I don't think they know the market that they had, but they don't seem to be listening. So maybe at NAB I can grab them by the throat and say, hey, bring back the multi-channel mixer that a podcaster can afford. Typical podcaster. But hey, Jason.
Yes, sir.
What else you got? Hey, do you have any software or apps that you've tried out in the last year in your productions?
Yeah, we used to use Levelator a lot for like the last mile conversion, just to get everything into check. And we've just switched over to Ophonic. So we got the desktop version of Ophonic and have kind of moved over to that because just the sound quality is so much better. I mean, yes, it costs $100 more than Levelator, which is free, but for the sound quality and just the adjustment levels that you have, because Levelator is Levelator, there's nothing you can do with it. It's like you put it in and you get what comes out. The settings on this, the tweaking we can do has just been fantastic, and ever since we got it, our shows have definitely sounded a lot better.
Yeah, and there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, we have talked about, or at least I've talked about on my show, I think it's probably been brought up here, there's these things called loudness standards, and this happens in broadcast more frequently than you're going to find it in podcasting or even radio, which it's starting to come to. And these are just standards for volume levels, and it would be nice if all podcasters sort of delivered at a nice level that did not blow out your ears if you're listening to one show and you go to another show, or that the levels are not changing all the time where you're twisting knobs. I need a little lower, I need a little higher. And this can be a complex process to understand, how to loudness normalize. It's different than just normalization. They use the same word, but they are very different processes. And Auphonic is amazing for a whole bunch of reasons, and one of them is that it will do this for you. You say, hey, set it to -16 LUFS, which is the standard, and you can dive into this more with us later, and it'll just do it for you. So that is very cool. I mean, I had the developer on my show, the Podcaster Studio, and we talked about Auphonic, and he's even working on part of the algorithm that will help with the reverb. Everyone is always, man, I've got all this reverb, and it makes sense. We're podcasters. We're not usually in an ideal recording space, and so that's something to look forward to. I've seen some impressive stuff with that lately with some plugins, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does there. But Daniel, what else about Auphonic? You also have the desktop app, right?
Yeah, I purchased the desktop app during their sale that they had on New Year's Eve, I think. And I have been extremely impressed with it in its noise reduction. I had some sample recordings from a lav mic that I was working with for a product I was creating. And there's understandably some hiss in the background with the lav mic. And I had learned how to do advanced noise removal in Adobe Audition, where you're removing the noise from a certain track or a certain frequency, not from other frequencies. So that way your vocal frequencies stay nice and crisp, but the noise is in other frequencies. I was doing all this stuff that I was pretty proud of, thinking, yeah, this sounds so much better than just a straight noise removal like you might do in Audacity or Audition if you don't tweak these settings. But it was taking me about an hour to figure out just the ideal settings, and it sounded really good to me, much better than just a standard way. But then I thought, I'm curious how well Auphonic will do. So I went back to my original file, exact same source file, ran it through Auphonic with just telling it reduce the noise and the hum, and I was amazed. It did a better job than I did myself, manually tweaking every frequency in Adobe Audition. Auphonic did better, and it didn't have the artifacts of sounding like you were underwater when you were talking. I was amazed at that. So now I use that all the time. If I need to remove noise in a recording, especially like from a lavalier microphone, I run it through Auphonic first, and it does a stellar job at that. And it's also done some great jobs of, I had to use a recording that went into my computer through the analog port, and it had a little bit of a buzz in the background. And Auphonic removed that completely. It was amazing. And that's the desktop app. But the web app is available for free up to 2 hours per month that you can process. So this is both a free new toy and a paid new toy. And it's a great thing. I do really like it.
Yeah, and so there you go. There's one of the free options, 2 hours, and some podcasts can live on that alone, right? I mean, if you do 4 half-hour shows, 2 one-hour shows, so you could probably get it done with the free version. But I have the desktop version, and there's the web version as well. And yeah, it's just really cool, and it's been fun to have sort of a Levelator upgrade. Because he was inspired by the Levelator and that team of people who worked on that, and I think he's worked with some of the people who worked on Levelator, and he's just currently developing it and doing awesome things. So check out Levelator. There's a lot of like +1s for Auphonic in the chat, and I think when I watch the archive of this now, there's like a thumbs up feature that sends applause, so I can, but I don't get that in real time on the Google Plus Hangout. So I go back and I'm like, oh, hey, people really liked that. That might be handy if I knew that was going on, because I could be like, hey, looks like people want us to hear more about that. But Sean Smith in the chat dropped some knowledge, some pre-fader, post-fader mixer knowledge on us in the chat. And Sean is great. I met him at Podcast Movement. He was there doing interviews with those Shure SM7Bs and sounding great in his mobile setup. And he says pre-fader is a standard for recording /aux sends. He said because most of these boards are designed to be used for live sound, and that's very true. We are co-opting oftentimes music music hardware, music software editors, music techniques. When I talk about post-processing, try find stuff on that's not music. So anyways, he says they are often designed for live sound. This is so when the live engineer adjusts audio for the main outputs, it doesn't affect the recording at all, or the monitor mix for the stage monitors. So not only fader, but also EQ, effects, etc. There's very few low-cost broadcast or recording-only mixers, not yet. And so, that maybe makes that a little more understandable as to why these seems like these mixers tend to be pre-fader like that. And, the Alesis that I had is post-fader. That's definitely consumer, so that might be the difference. But, so... I figured it had to be a good reason. And again, we are using a lot of tools that originally were made for musicians. So thanks, Sean, for clearing that up. And he does, let's see, the Mobile Pro. I'm just like putting a mouse over the profile. So it is a good idea if you have the name of your podcast, so I can easily just go over here, not just for me, anybody, discover your show. It's like, hey, Sean gave some knowledge in the community. Check out the podcasters community on G+. It's totally awesome. And that could be a way that people find you or find your show. So check out the Mobile Pro that Sean does there. I'm assuming it's the mobilepro.com, but I don't want to assume, but check it out. What's up?
I think it's mobilepro.net, actually.
There you go. All right.
Or it's something like that. I'm pretty sure it's
the
.net.
Mobile Pro. All right, cool.
Hey, I've got something I recently purchased. This was a Christmas gift to my business. All of my toys end up being business expenses, really. But I have a new MacBook Pro. That's not the gift itself. That was a forced expense. But it has fewer USB ports on it, and I've got a USB 3 hard drive. I have a bunch of USB devices that I have to plug into my computer for when I'm working, and this computer has one fewer than before. And I was working with a Dell monitor that can also function as a USB hub, but it's USB 2 only, and it has a short somewhere in it. So whenever I move the monitor, all the USB devices get disconnected. So I was looking at a multifunction device, and I saw it in Otherworld Computing's, or OWC's, Thunderbolt 2 dock. This thing is a Thunderbolt dock that you connect with modern computers, and it provides 5 USB 3.0 plugs. Most Thunderbolt hubs only provide 3 USB hubs. This also provides another Thunderbolt output, so you can daisy chain devices. It provides HDMI output and analog audio input and output, as well as there's a FireWire port and a gigabit Ethernet port, which I also needed for this computer. So it was fulfilling multiple things for me in this one piece of equipment. I pre-ordered it, so I saved $50 on it. I really do like it because now when I am at my computer, if I want to take my laptop computer with me or I'm bringing it back to my office, I only have 2 cables to work with, the power cable and the Thunderbolt cable. Everything else is plugged into that Thunderbolt hub. I really like it. The one thing I don't like about it, though, is or maybe 2 things, 1.5 things. The audio input was marketed as being mic/line in. It is not line in. It's microphone in. It is extremely over amplified, so I have to turn my system input level for that device all the way down.
Yeah, I was gonna have you explain a little bit what does it matter? What's the difference to anyone who doesn't know the difference between line and mic? How does that affect your production?
If you're plugging a microphone directly into this, it needs more boost, more gain to it to be able to interface directly with the computer. But if you're plugging a mixer into it, like I do, a mixer is outputting a much more stronger, hotter signal, and that's why I have to turn my input volume all the way down on the device. Otherwise, if I turn it up much more than almost at the bottom, then it starts distorting my voice and clipping and sounding horribly. But what I really don't like, I mean, that I can kind of deal with. OS X has some issues with that, though. But what I really don't like is that input level, even though it was originally labeled a line in, is mono. It's not stereo. I had all my hopes that it would be a stereo input, and it's not. But still, I like that it has 5 USB 3 outputs. 2 of them are charging outputs. That's pretty nice. I think 1.5 amp charge output. So it's pretty nice. $250 if you manage to snag it still on pre-order. Otherwise, it's $300. But that's my new thing that has really cleaned up my desk, literally, because now I don't have all these cables running to different USB hubs and all over the place visually.
Yeah, that's one I was actually looking at. So I'm curious to hear how you like that over the given time, over as time goes by. And is that a song? Should I start singing? No, I should not start singing. So, because I think that I saw that from CES. Todd Cochran, I believe, had that on his show. That's the one, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so maybe something cool to check out if you need to clean up your cables or get some extra hubs there. What, Jason? Do you have something else there that you have used over the last year to improve your stuff?
Well, I'm digging into the Mix Minus now because I told you that as soon as I got my mixing board, the first thing I did was go and watch your videos on the Mix Minus and figure that out. So I've got the 2 Mac set up now. I got a Griffin iMic. I believe it's an iMic.
Yeah.
And have just been trying to wrap my head around how all that works. And it took about a day to really get it kind of dialed in. But the quality of Skype calls has just been, it sounds like he's in the same room with me now. It's amazing. So that has been kind of like the real biggie, is trying to really get deep into how everything works with the mixing board and routes. And this new hub, I think I'm going to go order one of those right away because that sounds amazing.
This is a dangerous round, right? This is where we're going to cost somebody some money, so we're sorry.
Yeah,
but we're
podcasting's like owning a boat. It's a money hole sometimes.
Yes,
you really
podcasting can make you money, whereas the boat pretty much just going to suck it out of your pocket.
That's true.
Yes, boats.
True.
The infamous worst investment you can make is grab yourself a boat. Yeah, that's cool. So when you say the Mix Minus has made an improvement, how were you recording Skype before?
First, we started with call recorder like everybody does, and then I started doing splitting with Audio Hijack Pro and bringing it in that way, and doing the aggregate device with the multi-output and routing it that way directly into the recording software. We were using Sound Studio for that, so we were bypassing call recorder and just using Audio Hijack Pro and Soundflower. And that gave us a boost. That gave us a definite quality boost, but it still really wasn't where I wanted it to be, because I listened to 100 podcasts, and I know I want to sound like that guy. And that's been, my windmill I've been tilting at. So now we're finally getting there, thanks to you and your videos. So appreciate that. But yeah, that's been the real biggie. And software-wise, I've been using Sound Studio for a while, because we used to do Soundtrack Pro.
Oh, there he is. Another Soundtrack Pro disciple. Man, you're ripping my heart out at the same time you're making me smile ear to ear. I have just, and we may talk about this because I have tried some other editing software since. I've tried many, but I'm making the process of switching from Soundtrack Pro to something else. And I love Soundtrack Pro. It's just a shame that they killed it. It is, in my opinion, the best UI to edit in, but if you haven't used it, you won't miss it. I have made basically the full transition to Audition. I absolutely love Audition. It has a few things that I wish it would do the way Soundtrack Pro did, but certainly it's way more powerful. So what did you go to?
So right now we're still using Sound Studio, but I'm making the transition to Logic.
Logic Pro 10,
Logic
yes,
Pro
which
10,
I've also
yes.
tried. That's Apple's sort of. These are made for music. At least, definitely Logic is, and while making that transition, I dug into Logic. I really wanted Logic to win, partly because I'm on a Mac, but that doesn't matter. Adobe's got the Mac versions, but I love the plugins, and I was hoping that it would be kind of a smoother transition from Soundtrack. They have the Logic plugins, which Soundtrack Pro had as well, and they, in my opinion, at least for UI sake and variety, they do so much better on the Logic Pro side or the Logic plugins than Adobe does. That's one of the areas that I'm not a big fan of in Audition. The native plugins are sort of it's not enough variety. The UIs, they look old. They're not as good. But Audition still wins on functionality for sure. And I've chosen Audition. It is definitely the better podcast editor. But that being said, Logic Pro is really close. If you came from Soundtrack, you'll still enjoy it. You will admit, you'll be like, why doesn't it do this the way Soundtrack? Did those teams did they not talk to each other? What the heck happened? And they did not. There are not the same people on the team, obviously. But so I'll be interested to hear your experience with that. What's nice is that you can buy that if you're on a Mac, of course. You can buy that outright for $200 and you're done. Audition, now you've got to get into the subscription subscription model, which is you could do just Audition for I think $19 a month, but at some point, not too far in the future, you're going to cross that $200 line.
Yeah,
and you
less
got to
than
keep
a year.
paying.
Yeah, that's less than a year. So
Yeah.
that was that one, and also with Pro Tools Free coming out, I tried to hold off until that came out, but
don't bother.
Really.
Well, I mean, if it's from what I've read, it's functionally dead. I mean, it's very, very limited. Pro Tools, I wanted to make Pro Tools work as well. Every time I looked into Pro Tools, there was something getting in the way. I had to literally buy a piece of hardware to get this piece of software to make a plug-in to make Pro Tools run. I hear like they have a one-to-one. This may not be true. If you're in the chat and you know, I hear when you export, it's like 1-to-1. So if it's an hour podcast, you have to sit there while it exports for an hour. There are things it's not worth it. Let's just say that. There are editors that are just they're equal, if not better, for podcast production. And Audition, Logic, there's even GarageBand. Now that's a new, old tool, I think, for podcasters, because if you have been in the space, use GarageBand. They updated to, I guess, like 10.1, but I think they're at 10.3 now. People are opening up GarageBand and they're emailing me and saying, what happened? GarageBand doesn't work the same. It doesn't look the same. It's not that different. It does look different. They've taken out a couple basic functions that are ridiculous, like if you split a track and then you drag that track back over the next one, you should be able to make a crossfade there, which is going to make for a much smoother transition when you make a cut. It doesn't do that. I think they took out automatic ducking, which I'm not a big fan of anyways. So it's still perfectly capable and actually does make the list for free. If you're looking for an editor, you have Audacity, right, Daniel? Mm-hmm. And you've got GarageBand if you're on a Mac. So in relation to that, Daniel, is there anything new in Audacity in the last year that has made that any different, any better, any worse?
Not really. Audacity is making small improvements. It's still basically the same program that it was several years ago.
And works well, though. I mean,
it does work well.
Works well.
It is just becoming more and more dated. And although it is a multi-track editor, it doesn't have all the great features of multi-track editors and the functionalities really of a true multi-track editor. But it does work really well, and I've used it for years with my podcasting, and it worked fine for me. I just wanted to get a better workflow, and that's why I did eventually make the switch to Adobe Audition as well.
Yeah. And Jason, did we sort of, when you said Soundtrack Pro, man, you just cut right to my heart, and I went on a tangent. Were you going somewhere else with that?
Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought.
I'll do that. You're welcome. I'll do that to you.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I just wanted to mention that I was waiting for Pro Tools and then just couldn't wait anymore and just jumped off just because of the workflow. Because with using Sound Studio as the interim bridge, it's a nice little waveform editor, but for workflows, it's not really there. And to your point, Audition looked really good. I wanted to try it, but the subscription model turned me off. Yeah,
I finally went all in on the CC full package because I use all those different programs, After Effects and Premiere and stuff like that. But there are different levels. Like I said, if you want to do just Audition, you could do that by itself. So you just have to decide for you and your budget and what you need. But remember that these things oftentimes, when it comes to software and editors, they're going to make things easier, as we sort of mentioned up front, not necessarily better, right? I mean, with Audacity, for the most part, with GarageBand, you can get what you need to do for your podcast done just fine. So don't feel like you're completely that you can't make your show as good as someone else's just because you don't have a $300 editor or something.
That was the other thing I wanted to mention. With GarageBand, you can still run GarageBand 6, which still has the podcast project types. Right. So I still actually do shows in that sometimes when I've got like 4 people in a room. It's just much easier to run it through that just for the recording, and the export sounds amazing, and then you can work from that. But I tried the new one and I couldn't stomach it and went back and I found the old version and it works much better.
Nice. So use it while you can.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do we have? I feel like we have so much. Oh, we brought up recording Skype, and you said that your Skype recording has gotten better since you did the Mix Minus, and you're wrapping your head around that. By the way, thepodcasterstudio.com/mixminus. If you want to see my video and learn how to do that, it's probably the best blog post I've written, because I don't write blog posts that long, but it's very detailed with images and all that stuff. And I didn't see any good videos out there, so I made one. Hopefully it works. It sounds like it does. But related to recording Skype, we have sort of a whole new family of, or I don't know what to call it, but we have a whole new series of apps, web apps and web apps you can use on your phone that are coming out for recording Skype, which I think are really exciting because they make another concept that can be difficult, a double-ender, recording a double-ender, much easier. So let's dig into a little bit on these. First up, Daniel, let's talk about Ringer. You have tried Ringer, right? And we saw this app at Podcast Movement last year.
Yeah, Ringer is currently taking things from the perspective of using your iOS device to handle both the call and the recording at the same time. So this would be something where you and your host need to have, or you and your guests need to have the app installed. It flows pretty well where they get a particular invite code or a link that they click on. It helps them install the app and then get connected. You start the recording. It records on their device without having to mess with internet bandwidth, and then it sends you the recording afterward. It synchronizes these things up for you, sends you as the host the recording, and your guest doesn't have to worry about it. So it's great for the simplicity of it, but right now it is very platform limited because right now it's only on iOS that you can do that, and there are certain technological limitations for what you can plug into that and such, but it's a great idea, especially since so many people have a smartphone, an iPhone, and you'll get much better audio quality by holding your iPhone close to your face and talking that way than trying to use your internal microphone, which don't.
So also a free option right now, right?
Right, yeah, free while they're doing the beta, and they will eventually have paid plans. But they've said that they'll also have a free plan.
Yeah, very cool. And so pushing that even further, we've got sort of web apps, Cast and PodClear, I believe they are. Mm-hmm. These can be, so before you're sort of tied to an iOS device, although they did mention, I think Ringer hopes to have or will have a desktop and Android apps coming, so they're working on that stuff. But PodClear is via... it might be just Chrome. I know Cast is just Chrome right now.
PodClear is a desktop app. So right now it's
okay, good. We got all three.
Windows and OS 10, and right now it's only a desktop app. It's funny. Each of these three people are coming from this at different ends, and they're going to eventually meet in the middle, and then we'll have the ultimate battle. Yeah. But PodClear, is on the desktop side. It doesn't handle the call for you.
That's right. It connects to Skype.
Yeah. It doesn't connect to anything. You can run any program.
Okay.
For handling your voice. It could even be that you're talking just on your regular phone. But what PodClear is doing is it's handling the recording on that person's side, and it handles the synchronization, and then when it's finished recording, it uploads that file to you, and it supports more than just 2 people. Ringer right now only supports 2 people. PodClear can support virtually unlimited, but you wouldn't want to have unlimited people. So PodClear is the desktop side. There, it's something that people need to install, but your quality results may vary depending on what someone has on their computer. Certainly, if you're working with someone who has the right microphone connected to their computer or a decent microphone, then this makes it really easy to get a high-quality recording instead of asking them to install Audacity, tell them how to record, how to export, and all of that stuff, which I've done. I do double enders with my Once Upon a Time podcast, where I have up to 3 co-hosts, and they each record into Audacity or GarageBand, save the file, export it. Sometimes they forget to put it in the right Dropbox folder. So all of these moving parts, PodClear puts all of that recording, synchronization, uploading into one program.
Yeah, and that's the key, is that these apps are making what is normally difficult and not something that the average podcaster can do, ask the other person to record. They're making that easy. So Cast, to me, is one that I've tried. And again, you have to be invited in. It's in beta. In fact, they shut it down, I think, to do some work, and I'm waiting for it to come back. But I got to try it really quick with Corey, Corey Finneran from the Cubs podcast, IVMV.com. And it was awesome. And what was beautiful is that no apps to download. I sent him a link, and immediately he was connected to me in the browser via Chrome. And both our recordings were being handled by Cast locally. And then at the end of the conversation, those get uploaded to their server and then are available for you to pull back down. They only had MP3 available, but I think it was like 320 or something. It was the best sounding MP3 I've heard. Totally usable. Obviously, I'd prefer a WAV if you're listening, but you know what? I'd have no problem using that MP3 at all, even if you recompressed it. So it was just really cool. Had some cool like talking, mute features and some chat features inside. Really clean, great interface. But again, the biggest advantage in my book there was the fact that you can just send your interviewee a link, and they are basically in the chat. Now and into the conversation, recording that on their own side. They did nothing. All they did was click a link. Now, you do want to set up your microphone, and you do that in your browser. You just click the little icon in the browser bar, and you switch the microphone that you have. If you have hopefully it's as easy as having a USB microphone. So, hopefully your guests can use their best microphone, but it is very easy and makes this sort of process of double ender really simple. So this is exciting to me because, I always preach quality, and anything we can do to make that easier is an improvement in the podcasting space, and they're making interviews sound better. So I'm curious, hopefully they all make it. Hopefully they make it out of beta and succeed, and people pay for their services and they're around. And I think they all have affordable levels depending on how many podcast or interviews you would do per month. I think that most podcasters could probably get in on the ground floor to use that. And let me see, what else do we have? That was sort of the fun stuff in recording Skype. I have something here that I have not. I don't know that it's probably within a year, but this thing, I just keep loving this thing. And this is just this is a USB power brick essentially. This one's by Anchor. But, this thing, if your device is powered by USB, so my recorder is powered by USB, my audio recorder, I can plug this in, and it's like 12,000 milliamp hour or something. It just lasts forever. I rarely have to charge it. With phantom power, it runs my mics and my recorders I could run it all day on this thing. And so really it's just this great power device. You can recharge your phones from it. You can do all kinds of things. So if you're looking for USB power, a lot of the audio recorders, so the H5, the H6, these Tascams, all these that I mentioned, when I first got my hands on them, I was disappointed because I was like, there's no AC adapter. What am I going to do? I don't want to run this thing on battery all the time. And then found out, oh, hey, they're using USB to charge. Thought that was a not good, and turns out it's the best thing. I had a random idea to try one of these bricks, this thing. I just keep using it for everything that charges via USB, and it's really cool. Especially lets you go out in the field and record all day if you have this sort of thicker brick. There's pocket versions, there's all kinds. But this one would let you go out in the field all day and record off of just this little power brick. So I'm having a lot of fun with that new little device in my workflows. Anyone else have something else that they've been enjoying last year?
The one thing I was thinking of trying out was Hindenburg. Have you guys tried that yet?
I have tried it, and I do like it. It's a little pricey so for me, I want all the functionality, and that means buying the top level, and then it gets really expensive. Do you recall what the price level for the top one is?
$375.
$375. Okay, so in retrospect, what we've said about Audition, you're going to pay that, after a year, you're going to be in 375. Logic is 200. And Sean actually said that you also get an iPad app controller for Logic, which means you can control your your software via iPad. That's pretty cool, and that comes with it, But yeah, I think you can get it for free. I think he said for Logic Pro.
Yeah, when you download the software, it's like get our iPad app.
Yeah.
Although the Logic software has a 4.5-star review and the iPad has 2.5, so hopefully they're working on that.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll make that better. Logic has gotten better just since I've used it. But Hindenburg is cool. It has, again, those loudness standards. It has tools in there for helping you with that. That's pretty cool. I feel like they actually talk to the podcaster. They deal with things that podcasters might want to use. You can record Skype with Hindenburg, which is really cool. And it's too bad Dave's not here because he's the one that has the most experience with that software. I think he uses Audition, but he has used Hindenburg a lot. I really wanted to like it. I feel like there were one or two things from my pickiness that didn't work for me, but yeah, I think it's worth checking out. Check out the Hindenburg Journalist, it's called, and maybe that's why it caters to podcasters, because I think it's made for radio production. Okay, so I think it's worth trying out, definitely. That's cool. Anything you want to try out, Daniel, that you haven't tried out?
Yeah, I want to get a teleprompter for my iPad, so that what it would do is I put my iPad below the screen and then display text right in front of my camera.
Yep.
So that as I'm recording videos, especially like with my training videos, I really don't like looking away from the camera, and I don't want to be looking down at notes or something like that. I don't necessarily want to read a script, but there are certain times where I really should try and script something. Like I'm trying to make a very quick announcement video, like with podcast awards, for example.
Yep.
Or there's a certain way I want to say something that will make it quick and such. I really want to be able to just look directly into that camera and say those things. Even if it's not scripted, it's just displaying my points. So I know this is point 1, point 2, point 3. I don't have to try and remember when I'm halfway through my points. Wait, what was point 3? I don't remember exactly, or I'm inconsistent. And I found a pretty good one on Amazon. It's about $130 or $140, I think. And that's my next thing that I'm going to purchase, because I'm doing more and more product videos, tutorial videos and such. And that would then reduce how much time I have to spend in editing and doing retakes because I have to look down or I forgot something that I wanted to say. I'd be able to have that right in front of me, fewer edits, thus be able to create products more quickly.
Yeah, no, I think we use ProPrompter. I bought one. I had to buy one for my work in the last year, and it was expensive. It was an expensive piece of kit that we bought, but we have definite situations where we have, leaders in our organization come in and have to basically read something to the camera. Now, it's not ideal, but you can make reading. In fact, if the intro to this show, if you didn't know, most of that I was reading, like that disclaimer thing, I actually wrote that out. Now, I always go off of that, but that's a good case. And I wanted to make sure that I said A, B, and C. And, I could not look right at the camera because I've got to look down at the notes for that. And I just did a YouTube video where I wanted to say, it was basically a channel trailer. So I wanted to say very specific things. And that audience, there are certain times when people will really appreciate that. They don't want you stammering around and uhs and ahs and trying to figure out what you're going to say. Get to your point and get out, especially on YouTube. A podcast, I would not script that. That is more of a conversation, a discussion, or, something you have planned out in your notes, and you're probably not on camera, so you could actually look away. But this one, you want to look and talk to your audience, look right in the camera. You can't look away at notes unless, you can. I've jimmied some things where I put an iPad right underneath the camera, but if you have to back up quite a ways to make it look like you're looking at the camera when you're actually looking down or below. So I think that could actually be very beneficial in certain situations when you're doing some video stuff, for sure.
Yeah, we use Teleprompt Pro, or not Teleprompt Pro, Teleprompt Plus.
Right.
That's for some of our videos. Teleprompt Plus. And we put the iPad on a tripod right next to the lens barrel, kind of at a 45-degree angle off.
Yep.
and just backed up a little bit, and you cannot tell like the eye parallax at that point, and it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
And that's just a cheap alternative instead of buying the whole teleprompter box.
No, you're right, and that's what I've done for years. I did that with Teleprompt Pro. Just type in Google free teleprompt, and you can go to the browser and use these and put on your computer. And I jacked the computer right underneath the camera lens. And like I said, if you back up, you can't tell. But at some point, like Daniel's talking about, and you want to just set up and go, this is much easier sometimes to buy the appropriate gear. And that is the difference. This conversation is kind of what that's all about, right? There are options to get things done. Some options might make it just a little bit easier and more convenient to get these done, especially if it's something you do on a regular basement. In a regular basement or on a regular basis. A lot of podcasts done from the basement.
Hey, one other app I got recently, I just remembered. This was an app from my Mac that saved my life a lot. And if you have a Mac and you want to do any kind of screen recording, I highly recommend that your screen recording be at 16:9 ratio. Then it looks perfect in a YouTube video, or any kind of video that you're releasing most likely is designed to fit 16:9. But most computer screens are 16:10 ratio. So you end up having to crop your display awkwardly or other weird things. There are ways to hack your computer to allow you to display in these custom 16:9 resolutions. It's easier on the Windows side, but on the Mac side, there are some ways, unless you have a Retina device in which there's no way to hack that display. But this app is called Quick Res. That's Quick, R-E-S. It's $5 or $4, I think, somewhere around there. Best $5 I've spent in years, because this allows me to set my Retina display or my external display to whatever resolution I want, Retina or standard. And that way I can record, display my entire screen, not have to worry about cropping things or whether it's displaying in where I'm going to show with the video. It's beautiful for this. Best $5 I've spent in years.
Awesome, yeah. And just to throw in, I guess I've got a few things here. We do have Daniel sent me a chat. He asked me, how was the recording time? I said, we have 8 minutes, because I told him before we started live, we're on a hard out because I did not clear enough space on the SD card. These are podcasting problems. Did not clear enough space for an hour and 5 minutes. So I got to make sure that I shut that off. Now, what's nice about the way we do this is that YouTube is recording all of this, and there have been plenty of roundtables where I have just ripped the audio out of the YouTube file and used it. It's usable. It's not what I want to use, but it is totally usable. So thanks, Daniel. And we've got 7 minutes and 32 seconds. So we are out of here in 7 minutes. But in that time, a couple things. Now, these are things I included that are things that are maybe free or have tried, but necessarily aren't just like a big piece of gear or something. We talked about. Daniel, when the lead up, we kind of talked on email. Dropbox is free, right? I use Dropbox every day in my podcast production. What I like to do is put up like editing templates or files that I'm going to use, so that anytime if I went to another computer, I could basically crack open that editor and have my like intro files or voiceovers or whatever I want to be able to edit my podcast. I'm not tied to my computer. So Dropbox is free. MailChimp. Email lists seem like old tech, but they're still probably the best way to reach your audience and make sure you don't lose them. So MailChimp has free option. I'm still on the free option, which tells you that I don't have enough people on my email list. Not necessarily. They give you, what is it, 2,000? No, what is the limit on the free account?
You can send 2,000 emails at a time or 12,000 emails in a month.
That's good for free. That's really good. I mean, most podcasters probably won't even grow past that, and not in a bad way. So the Rode Rec app, which comes with the Rode Smart Lav, or it doesn't come with it, but it is mostly used for the Rode Smart Lav. Get the Plus, not the regular one. That's actually discontinued, I think. And they have a light version of that. So if you want to record on your iPhone, there's that. I would upgrade to BossJock, but it depends on what you're doing. There are so many recording apps for iOS and Android. Those are to check out, but Rode Rec is one of the cool ones. And actually, that reminded me, and I said discontinued. And Jason, you said you had the Griffin iMic. Did you guys see? I think they discontinued that. Did anyone else see that?
It was tough to get.
I gotta go buy some before that's gone. I like that thing. I wish they didn't get rid of it.
Yeah, it works great. It was on Amazon for like $35, and there were a couple sellers that still had a bunch of them. So go get them while you can.
Yeah, and these are just basically, it plugs in USB port and gives you an analog, 3.5 millimeter in and out. And this can really help if your mixer's not USB. Yeah, it's just a little thing like that.
Oh, there it is. My mic.
And it's helped me in several situations. I'm using it now. In this workflow, I use it now. So the recorder is plugged in that way. Another piece of gear. Let's see. Can I do this? I don't know if the cord's not long enough. Down there is a DBX 286. Those knobs sticking out there. My cord is not going to reach. Here we go. Look at this. Go on a ride with me, people. There's the DBX. It's actually we're using it right now. There you go. You can see as I talk, and the focus is out of focus. It's pulled back. And this is nice, but it is most certainly not essential. This is maybe something to add in later. It is a preamp and processor. And as you get sick, as I move the mic back, the camera back into position, audio listeners, you have an advantage here. You don't have to get motion sickness. But it's a preamp and processor. The main reasons I bought this were, in fact, the preamp and the expander or noise gate, which whenever you want to sort of use. I prefer expanders. Won't go into that now. But it has a compressor, a de-esser, enhancer. Then you can have some output gain because if you're doing compression, you're going to need extra gain. So it has, and phantom power, of course. And I just added this in. I had the MDX 4600. I did hear some noise in their gate after a while, but it's 4-channel. Still works in my workflow when I get that set back up. But so far, so good. I like this, but it's if you're looking for that boomy, deep voice, it can certainly deliver that, but that can be dangerous. A little goes a long way on this thing. The preamp is really nice, so if you want to add in a preamp to get extra clean gain into a mixer that maybe isn't as clean, it can help with that. The gate seems like it's really nice and transparent, which is, you can't hear when it's on and off. Now, you're actually not hearing this. You're not hearing that on the Google Plus Hangout. You are hearing it in the audio version. So a couple different versions. Check out the podcast. We do have a podcast-only version, audio-only on iTunes or Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast from. Just search The Podcasters Roundtable. So the DBX has been interesting. It's definitely something you want to research before you get into something like that, but it's not terribly expensive. I believe it's like around $150 or something. So if that's something you're looking at, DBX is one option. I've gone off of the recommendation of a lot of podcasters that I respect who use this thing, and so I'm still dialing it in. We'll see what the final verdict is, but I like it so far, and that was my Christmas present. Daniel, you said you gave your show a Christmas present. That was my studio's Christmas present to itself, I guess you could say. But we are in the final, what do we got here? 2 minutes, and I probably should not flirt with disaster, so we'll move that out of here. Does anyone else, do you guys have anything else that we didn't get to you desperately wanted to mention?
The only thing that I would mention is HackPad, which is it's a collaborative editing web app that Dropbox recently bought. We use that for our shows to do all our show notes pre-show, so a bunch of people can come in, use it, add to notes collaboratively, and then everybody can be looking at the same set of notes. It's like Google Docs, but a lot sexier.
Cool. All right. Get your sexy on with, what was that called? HackPad?
HackPad.
All right. Make your show sexy. And, I'm expecting like Dave's head to just pop up. Boop. Hey, Dave, it's Dave. But hopefully he's traveling safe. Hopefully he did not try to listen to us on the way home. But Dave, we miss you. We'll see you on the next roundtable. Again, looking forward to seeing any roundtablers out there who are going to attend New Media Expo. Make sure you let us know because we want to see you in person. And, of course, if you don't, still get in touch because we don't know you're out there unless you get in touch. So let's figure out how to get in touch. If you go to podcastersroundtable.com, and as we go out here, thanks for joining us. This was another fun round. Tell us how we can get in touch with you, name of your show, and the website that's at. Daniel, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. I'm Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity-to-podcast.com and on Twitter at the Ramen Noodle.
I'm Jason DeFillippo from the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast at grumpyoldgeeks.com. You can find us there and at jpd.me.
Awesome. Very short and sweet. Thank you guys so much. We got 49, 48, 47, and we're out of here. All right. We will see you next time on Podcasters Roundtable. And until then, wave bye, everybody. Everybody being all two of you and me. Bye.